أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سدد لساني نوير جناني صفي أماني وزيد براي. Viewers of Echo from Tuba, welcome again to the program. We're so happy to have an eminent professor today visiting Professor Gorgui Dieng, board member of the University of Cheikh Anta Diop, head of African and post-colonial studies. We're going to come back to the influence of colonial era and post-colonial as well in Africa. But first, wishing well to our Khalif, Sheikh Muntaqa. May Allah help him to finish the work he's doing and give him good health and make him also finish the University of Tuba and all the projects he's having. Salam also to my Sheikh Muntaqa, Sheikh Murtada of Sheikh Abdullahat. May Allah also bestow upon him a good health. Welcome to the show, Professor Gorgui Dieng.
Thank you for inviting me.
MashaAllah, thank you again. I almost said Gorgui C. Dieng, the basketball player. Right? Are you related to him?
I can be his father. No,
right.
But all the Diengs are the same.
All the Diengs are the same, right?
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm with the gay people though. Dieng, Fall, and all. I don't know about that.
I think all the Diengs come from Walalde.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah.
That's what history teaches us.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So, Professor, we're going to talk about first, pre-colonial era and post-colonial in Africa. First of all, can you tell us about the inheritance of the colonial era, especially in Senegal, before we kind of debate about Africa?
Okay, thank you. Once again, thank you for your invitation, Mr. GAYE.
You're welcome.
But first of all, I would really like to make people understand what we mean in general by post-colonial. Because most of the time, people believe that post-colonial refers to a period. Of course, it can refer to a period after independence, post-colonial, that is the period after colonization. But this is one interpretation, one meaning of the word, post-colonial. But in general, when we talk about post-colonial studies, post-colonial literature, post-colonial thought, we in general refer to an ideology. Because post-colonial didn't really start after colonization. It started during colonization.
Okay.
That is an ideology which really wanted to redress the wrongs made by the colonizers.
Okay.
That is the misinterpretation of Africa and the colonized nation of the world, the misinterpretation of the cultures of Africa, the culture of the colonized world. And then talk about the real realities, the real things, from the inside, not from the outside. Because all those people from Europe who tried to interpret Africa and interpret Europe, Asia and the colonized nations, they did it from the outside. That means that they didn't really understand the realities. And then the post-colonial thinkers wanted really to redress this, to subvert this, to deconstruct this in order to really make people discover what the realities in Africa and Asia are really.
Okay. So that means you just mentioned a word, deconstruction of the negative impact of colonialism. But also, was it revolutionary minds who started that fight? What happened during that? Because you said during colonial era.
Right.
So inside the colonial era, what happened? Is it people who stood up against them? Can you tell us, elaborate on that a little?
Especially after the First World War and then the Second World War, 1939, 1945 especially. So after discovering that too many lies have been told about Africa, about Asia, about the societies in Africa and societies in Asia, after participating in the First World War and then in the Second World War, these African people came to the conclusion that all that has been said about Africa so far was wrong.
Corrupted.
Yes, and then they said, we have got now to tell the world the realities of Africa from an African and from an Asian perspective.
Right.
And this is really what they did. It is the reason why I really appreciate your word, because it was really a revolution, which really tried to subvert everything. Not subvert only, but simply to tell the truth. Because what the Europeans, what the colonizers had said about Africa and about the colonized nation of the world was not really the truth. It was a set of rather stereotypes, a set of misinterpretations, because they did all this from the outside. And then this said, okay, they are calling us barbarians. They are calling us uncivilized people.
Right.
Whereas we have come to the conclusion that we are civilized, we are human beings. And then they really wanted to show the reality from the inside. From the inside. This is the reason why I agree with you. It was really a revolution.
It was a revolution, absolutely. So, what basis was the revolution? This revolution started. Actually, it was from inside Africa or outside Africa.
Right. I have got to say that the process really started in Asia, because as you know, the first nation, the first colonized nation to achieve independence were Asian nations. India, Pakistan, Indonesia, etc. So they really started the process. And then most of those countries, they achieved independence in the almost immediately after the Second World War, in the 1940s.
45 war, right.
1940s, and early 1950s. And then this is the reason why we had independence also in Africa in the early 1960s.
Okay.
The same influence also started in Asia regarding this post-colonial ideology. Because most of the thinkers, they were from India, from Pakistan, from Palestine even, for example, Edward Said,
right.
Gayatri Spivak, etc. All those thinkers from Asia, they really started the process after discovering that all that had been said about their nation, their cultures was wrong.
Right.
And then this also moved also to Africa. In the same way as the decolonization process started in Asia, the decolonizing the mind process also started in Asia with this post-colonial ideology. And we can, for example, take examples in Africa. If you see what Cheikh Anta Diop has
pioneer.
Yes. You may consider his writings to be really post-colonial writings.
Okay.
Because what had been written about Africa before Cheikh Anta Diop were writings that denied Africa any culture, any civilization. And he used the science to demonstrate the opposite.
Absolutely.
So it was really part of the decolonization process.
Okay.
It also part was the post-colonial
era.
We're
going to come back to that, inshallah, Professor. I mean, beautiful, illustrated by the professor, inshallah, again from Columbia University. Actually, he wrote many books also. We're going to come back to that, inshallah, to let you enlighten a little bit about his work. If you're following Echo from Tuba, please follow our page. Inshallah, you like it. Subscribe to our channel also on YouTube, inshallah. The only purpose of this show again is to spread knowledge from Africa, from the work of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, and also all the positive minds we have here in Senegal and across all Africa. And so, Professor, we can say that the revolution was universal, because we were talking about Africa. You said about India, Pakistan.
Right.
So it was a revolution that really spreads out across the world. It was
a revolution that is a decolonization of the mind of the colonized nation of the world. And then I said it started in Asia, but it was really present across the world. And we had examples in Africa. And I gave the example of Sheikh Anta Diop.
Right.
With his Negro nation and culture, civilization of barbarism, etc. All this was really
Right.
a post-colonial attitude, a post-colonial reaction to all that has been said negative about Africa. But he did it from a scientific perspective.
You debunk it.
Yes, he did it from a scientific perspective because he demonstrated, he didn't only speak.
But he didn't have many support from his peers, African peers.
Well, because at that time maybe people really believed that he was simply talking.
Okay.
He was simply reacting.
Right.
But they didn't really understand that he was reacting from a scientific perspective. He was deconstructing what has been said negative about Africa, but he was doing this from a scientific perspective. Unlike those who had talked about Africa from an outsider position. And I even say that it was really present everywhere. The novelists, even Chinua Achebe's novel, Things Fall Apart, known as, translated as Le Monde s'effondre. It was also a post-colonial reaction to all that has been said negative about Africa in African culture. And he used Igbo culture to demonstrate how well the nation of Africa were organized, were structured. And he gave the example of Igbo culture. And even the great Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, I consider him myself to be a post-colonial writer.
Okay.
Not altogether, because his writings, most of his writings are about Allah, are about Muhammad. He celebrates Allah, he celebrates Muhammad. But I think there is a poem in which he wants to, he talks to those who belittle Africans, or who belittle him as an African writer, as an African writer, simply because I'm black. It's not because I'm black that you don't have got to respect my writings. I am black, but what I'm writing is great. So he also wanted also to show that humanity is the same. Whether you are black or white or yellow, you are a human being. That's right.
The best of you is the one who fears
Allah.
That
was also a post-colonial reaction.
Reactions.
Absolutely.
I wanted to make a point over there. I mean, ask you to follow up on that, because we're talking about negative impact of colonialism, colonial era. Can you tell us about those the side of the negative impact? What did the colonial era really, how they impacted Africa on the negative side?
Right. Let us now talk about this post-colonial. Now was two words. That is post dash and colonial, which refers now to the period after independence. We are no longer talking about an ideology, but we're talking about now a period of time. The impact is present everywhere. It is a multifaceted impact. In the way we speak even. Because I'm speaking English, you're asking questions in English to me. Whereas we should have been asking this question and answering this question in Wolof or in
local languages,
language. So the language issue is the first important thing. And it is said that languages convey cultures.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you are really familiar with the language, if you did you have done your education in a language, you are strongly influenced by the culture this language conveys.
Absolutely.
So one of the first consequences, negative consequences of colonization is the presence of the European languages in Africa, and which really prevents us from being ourselves. Whatever we may be saying, we are still controlled by Western culture and even Oriental culture, because most of the time people think about Europe, but we have got to think about also the Arab world, the influence in the Arab world.
We're not Arabs.
That's right. We are not Arabs. We are not Arabs, and we're not Europeans either.
Okay.
So when I talk about post-colonial, I will to talk about all this aspect. This is the language issue. But we have also the culture influence. We talk also the way in which our nations achieved independence. Most of our leaders Sheikh Anta Diop and Senghor at the time, Modibo Keita, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, and many of those leaders in West Africa, and we had the same thing in East Africa and in all the parts of Africa. We had really good leaders who wanted to achieve real independence for the nations.
Right.
But unfortunately, the former colonizing powers didn't want any real independence for Africa and for the African nation. So what they did was they maneuvered in order to grant independence, but without sovereignty. This is one of the consequences of the situation in which we are.
Right.
We are independent countries, but we are not sovereign countries. See, this is one of the most horrible, terrible consequences of this colonization, because the colonization had gone, stopped, it theoretically stopped in the early 1960s, but it's still present through neocolonialism.
So this fight is going to be for a long haul.
And then this is the reason why we don't have our own currency in West Africa. We're still depending on France. Okay, the money you're using. Okay, to buy oil, to buy sugar, to buy rice. The
transaction is done in euro.
It's from France.
Right.
This is terrible. And the French doesn't want the Senegalese to go to France. Isn't this bizarre? The money, the currency we're using, the CFA franc, comes from France. Is made in France. Okay? And sent to Senegal, sent to the other countries.
And there's no country you can go and exchange your money.
No.
It has to be in euro.
Right.
No other country recognizes CFA.
We are controlled economically, financially by France. So we are not independent, to tell the truth.
Right.
So this is also one of the most horrible consequences of colonialism.
Is it true there were treaties that were signed, I mean, according to independence, you have to say yes and then have some advantages. You say no, like Sekou Touré did, and it's going to be horrible.
Yes, you see, the early 1960s, the early 1960s was a very difficult context for African leaders.
All right.
We really have got to acknowledge this. African nation achieved independence in the early 1960s when we had a crisis in the world opposing the West and then the East. The West controlled by the USA, and then the East controlled by the USSR. And then Africa achieved its independence at this period. Okay? And it was difficult really for the African leaders to do what they wanted to do for the people. To tell you the truth, they were really very positive leaders who wanted to do something to achieve, for example, federal states.
States, right.
Yes, in West Africa, for example, the Mali Federation. In East Africa, the Federation of East Africa. When all those attempts got really jeopardized, sabotaged by the French and by the British. Because they understood that real independence in West Africa would jeopardize all the agenda, the post-colonial agenda of France. And this is the reason why they did whatever they could, the French did whatever they could in order to dismantle the federation. People are talking about conflicts between Senghor and Modibo Keita. I consider that to be really superficial. The real issue was that the French did not want the Federation of Mali to exist because it was against their interests.
Okay. MashaAllah. So, Professor, I'm going to ask you another one that really comes up to my mind right now. Are we mentally, emotionally ready for this precedent of post-colonial? With the impact that really colonialism had on African people, you know, by the language, the culture, by the on the financial era. Are we ready right now, emotionally and mentally, to really find out?
That is the big question. That is the big issue. I mean, how to get rid of this situation? How to move away from this situation? The consequences of colonization are terrible.
They're terrible, absolutely.
And in every respect, the consequences are present. And you are right, okay, in insisting on the mental issue. Because we have got to free ourselves mentally, okay? And this is what a renowned Kenyan writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, calls decolonizing the mind. We have got to decolonize our mind in order to achieve the rest.
Right.
As long as we are mentally slaves, as long as we are mental slaves, it will be difficult for Africans to achieve anything in the other areas of development. There wouldn't be any development.
Right.
Okay? And I think maybe you are a reggae fan, I mean a Mali fan.
Right.
Okay? He said also in one of his songs that Africans have got to stand up and fight for their rights.
Right.
Understand?
Right.
And then they have got to get rid of this mental slavery. Okay? And nobody else would come and do it for ourselves.
We have to do it.
But
have no fear for atomic energy.
right.
None of them can stop the time.
That's right. Now the problem is now the consequences of colonization are so deep, are so deeply rooted that
it's almost too late to reverse it.
But it will be very difficult for
Right.
us to get rid of it.
Right.
But we have got to try.
Hope so.
And no one could come and help us. And it's our role and our duty to do it. And this is the reason why my position is I don't blame anything on the colonizers. I don't blame
blame games.
No, I don't blame anything on those who colonize us. I don't blame anything on those who enslave us.
But you cannot overlook them.
Because I want to be responsible for what is happening to me. Understand?
Right.
We have got to stop accusing the West. We have got to stop accusing Europe. We have got to stop accusing.
We're very responsible in a certain degree.
Absolutely.
Right,
if I am not responsible for what is happening to me, I consider myself to be a child, and I don't want to be a child.
Right.
I want to be responsible for what is happening to me, or for what has happened to me, and what will happen to me.
Absolutely.
So I've got to take care of myself.
Right.
And take my destiny in my own hands.
Absolutely. You can't be a child anymore. You've been independent since 1960s.
Yes.
You
Yes.
and still, you know, Africa is finding words.
That's right.
You wrote even a book that says "A Leap Out of the Dark."
Yes.
That really, you know, correlates to what we're
Absolutely,
talking about.
absolutely,
There's a way out.
Absolutely.
What was in your mind? What is the way?
I really insist in this book in a novel. It's fiction.
It's a fiction novel.
But any novel is made up of reality and then imagination. So there is a background reality against which all novels are written. So there is some reality. And the reality here is the post-colonial post-colonial realities in Africa, with the coup d'etats, with the embezzlement, with the mismanagement, etc. of the countries.
That was a big problem,
right?
You know, at the beginning,
right? And I also insist in the book on the necessity for Africans to rely on themselves and then rely on their own languages, because as long as we're using these languages from Europe, it will be very difficult for us to be ourselves, because we have got to convey our own culture.
Absolutely.
And we can only do it through our own languages.
Is it a tool ready right now, academically? Is everything on the table to start with?
Absolutely. This is my position. I have written many articles on this to show, I guess, give the example of Senegal.
Right.
This is a francophone country.
Right.
Is it francophone?
French speaking, yeah.
Is it really a francophone country?
Franglove or something.
I don't consider Senegal to be a French-speaking country.
Why?
No. Officially, the official language is French. But who speaks the language here? Even if you go to the administration,
they speak different languages, right?
If you go to the hospitals, they speak Wolof. Wherever you are, the Wolof language is used.
Stand out. So,
this shows that the language is a lingua franca. It has become a lingua franca. It is a language spoken by everybody. So, why can't we have the courage to face the music and then use that language as a medium in our education system. This is really necessary.
Yeah, well, Khasida to my ears.
Yeah, this is necessary because the French language is no longer a useful language in the world.
Right.
But we can combine our national languages with the English language, because this English language is a universal language,
absolutely,
used in science, in technology, in communication, etc. So we really have got to use this language plus our national languages and really get rid of this French language, which is really useless to me.
Is it a step being made at the university in terms of teaching languages over there, local languages?
Yes, to a certain degree, because I myself, I did English. I studied at Senegal University in the Department of English, and I studied English and Wolof. So I can write Wolof.
Right.
But not using the Arabic alphabet. And I believe that even this was even a mistake.
Using the Arabic letters?
No, using the Latin.
The Latin letters.
The Latin letters.
But you want to bring out the hieroglyphs from Egypt?
Not even to the hieroglyphs, but use at least the Arabic alphabet.
Right.
Okay, being used even today.
Oh, well, there's a huge source of knowledge
in
from
Touba, in
right.
Tivaouane,
Absolutely.
in all those.
That
places.
I agree with you.
Yes. So the national languages are really being taught.
Is there any alphabets invented in that matter?
Sorry?
Is there any alphabets invented in that matter in order to write Wolof, Pular, or Sereb?
Apart from these, the Latin alphabet, and then the Arab, the Arab alphabet, the Arabic alphabet, there are some people who have tried to invent alphabets.
Right.
There are some, because I really forget the name of the alphabet, but there is in Niger an alphabet used, and then it will be the alphabet they write Hausa. Okay. Okay. There is also an alphabet in Ethiopia, in present-day Ethiopia.
Okay.
They use
from a long time.
Right.
Right.
Amharic. Okay. But in West Africa, what has been really produced, I don't believe that it can really help us write our languages.
Right,
But we can use the Latin alphabet or use the Arabic alphabet to write our languages, because I don't believe that the Latin alphabet belongs to any nation. It's a universal asset.
Right, right. And we cannot lose time anymore. It's been a long, you know.
That's right.
Okay. And also, by the way, you following Lamphal television, TV, and this is Echo from Touba. I'm your host, S.Fallou GAYE. Of course, there's going to be a rerun every Sunday night, 11:30. All the posters, the videos will be uploaded, inshallah, on our page. Visit it, please. It's called Echo from Touba. It's Instagram. It's going to be also on our own channel on YouTube. You can follow us and also send questions if you want. You can, wait up. And tell us what you think about the show, your suggestions, your thoughts, and your critics is very important. I've been learning, and also the questions you've been asking about me. If I'm not responding automatically, I'm just trying to get facts. And when you talk about anything from Touba, you have to really go to the source, get the right answer. That is the reason why I'm kind of sometimes taking time to answer some questions. But we here for that. All over I'm getting questions from South Africa again, from Ghana, especially Nigeria, United States of America, even Argentina. There's some questions in Spanish though, and then also sometimes I have problem with that. But anyhow, since you kind of inquiring about Serigne Touba, we'll do our best to give you proper knowledge, inshallah. There's another book you've wrote also, before we come back to pioneers who really fought for post-colonial. You've wrote La Famille d'abord, Family First.
Right.
Is it something to do like America First or from Donald Trump? What's Family
This
First?
is Family First.
Right.
This is so it's my first novel.
Right. That was your first novel?
No, that's the second novel.
That's the second one.
I'm coming back to my.
But when was
first
the first one
The first
came
novel
out?
was,
by the way,
it was in 2002.
2002.
In English.
Okay.
A Leap Out of the Dark. Okay. The Dark. And translated as Un saut hors des ténèbres in French in 2009. And then this is the latest, maybe not the last, but the latest novel.
Yeah, I mean,
in French this time. I wrote this in French. La Famille d'abord, and then I translated it into English. Yes.
Already done.
Family First. Yes.
Okay.
The books are available. That latest novel, Family First, La Famille d'abord, insists on emigration.
Okay.
Okay. And there are many other themes, but the central theme, the main theme, is really on migration.
Migration from Africa to Europe.
Yes, especially from Senegal to Italy, to Europe.
One of the problems of post-colonial era.
Right. That is one of the post-colonial issues we have to tackle.
Absolutely.
And I want to insist on the fact that family is the most important thing. Maybe the money is good. The euros are good. But how about the children? How about the wives we're leaving behind? Okay? You leave your wife in Senegal and you go to Europe and look for money. You don't even know where you will get the money. And the children are left behind, if the families are left behind. I don't believe that there is anything with it. Family is the greatest thing.
Absolutely.
This is really what I want to
100% agree
on. So we don't really want to prevent anybody from moving from Senegal to another country, but we really have got to pay attention to what we're doing and then try and weigh things and try and see what the consequences of our immigration would be on our children, would be on our families. Right. Okay? Right. This is really what I wanted to insist on.
Beautiful.
And, but there are many other aspects related to African society, Senegal society, the embezzlement, the misgovernment, etc., the relationship between people, etc., the management of the hospitals, etc. Many issues have also been tackled in this novel.
Absolutely, and I think these two titles are imbricated because Leap Out of the Dark and Family First. I mean, if we're not yet out of the dark, it's going to be a family problem.
That's
because all the problems we're getting impacted from, I mean, post-colonial era, from French and stuff like that, it's going to show up in the organization of the society. Of course, people are going to travel, going to go out to seek a better life. This is the problem of we're having right now. And Professor, I just wanted to come back to the pioneers of this particular post-fight, colonial fight. Yes. And there's no way we can talk about, changing mind without talking about Cheikh Anta Diop, who was a great mind, someone who wrote something, knowledge, really something that goes back to Egypt, goes back to the African culture. Absolutely. And right now, there's a group of youngsters who come out and proclaim themselves to be Kemits, like they taking back the culture of Egypt and getting away from Arab culture, European culture, and that is another thing's happening in Africa right now. But tell us about Cheikh Anta Diop, his work. What did he brought to this particular fight?
Right, I think he wrote after having read a lot of negative things, a lot of false things, exaggerated things about his culture, about African culture. And he said, okay, I'm going to see whether this is true or not. Right. Understand? This itself was a post-colonial attitude to question what had been said so far about Africa and about his own culture. Right. And he studied and investigated and came to the conclusion, scientific conclusion, that all that had been said so far about Africa was wrong. And he decided to write, to show the real picture of Africa. Going back to ancient Egypt, which is the center, the center of human knowledge, the center of human civilization. Because all those Western nations, Greek civilization, Roman civilization, which are the basic,
the peak of,
yes, the basic elements of European culture. The greatest Greek thinkers had acknowledged that they had been influenced strongly by Egyptian thinkers. So civilization really started in Egypt. So whenever you're talking about African civilization, European civilization, etc., the origin is ancient Egypt. And this is what he really demonstrated scientifically, because the Africans who were being defiled, belittled, denigrated, he had come to the conclusion, scientific conclusions, that those people from Egypt, those ancient Egyptians, with their culture, they have their descendants in present-day West Africa. And this was really one of the most, one of the greatest conclusions of his works. And this is the reason why...
scientifically proven.
Yes, scientifically. And then this is the reason why he had really problems, even to defend his theories. Because it was like a bomb at the time to say that that ancient Egypt was African. That civilization started in Africa. That the Western, the West African peoples, the Wolofs, the Fulani, the Serer, etc., they originated from ancient Egypt. This is really something terrible to swallow for the Eurocentric thinkers and intellectuals at the time. And the reason why I really consider him to be one of the most outstanding post-colonial thinkers. But writing from a scientific perspective, because he could have started writing, writing novels or writing poems or writing essays, philosophical essays, but he chose to write history essays to demonstrate scientifically the importance of African civilization, of ancient Egyptian civilization. Civilization or barbarism, Negro nation and culture, all those books are really books that demonstrate the prominent position of Africa and African culture over the other nation of the world.
Absolutely. And what is sad about it, if you can add in some words on that, is his work is still not accepted in Europe and is still taught in Africa. So, and he's the fight Cheikh Anta Diop had. He had problems in his own country being accepted here. Even he had a thing, Ethan here, where he worked in a kind of
that's right. I mean, it's very difficult to be a pioneer, and it is very difficult to be accepted as a prophet in one's own country.
In your own country, right?
But I am a believer that things are changing.
Is it?
A lot. Because in my section, for example, the African and Post-Colonial Studies section, when we dealing with post-colonial thinking, post-colonial ideologists, post-colonial thinkers, we really include Cheikh Anta Diop and the other...
He's fully taught right now, his books in the university?
Not fully. I mean, you cannot really have, for example, a syllabus on one writer. This is not really something not scientifically acceptable. A whole syllable centered on Cheikh Anta Diop
is impossible.
I don't think that this is scientifically acceptable, but we have got to include him within the framework of a post-colonial...
But there's still more European authors, more European thinkers that are being taught in our own university than African thinkers, like Koch Barma, for instance.
Absolutely.
They're not known by our students.
See, because this is the other problem we have got to sort out. What is philosophy? Today, our terminal students,
Right.
our grade 12 students are sitting for their philosophy examination.
Right. Today.
Today.
MashaAllah.
And those students have been taught that civilization started in ancient Greece, whereas everybody knows now that this is not true.
And it's still taught in our own
Yes,
schools.
and it's still being taught in our schools.
But
And
isn't
I
that
don't know
sad,
the reason
Professor?
why. Yeah, it's I don't know.
Are people, they know about that, or they trying to ignore it, or what's
Yeah,
going
man,
on?
Maybe
There's already too much suffering in Africa.
We have inherited the system from the French. So it is high time we decolonized.
Deconstructing. What's
We have
stopping the
got
people to do
We
it?
have got to build our own education system.
Right.
And based on our own realities.
Right.
Not only social realities, but economic realities and other realities. And this is the reason why, even to this day, people refer to philosophy as real philosophy only when it is critical. You know what I'm saying? It must be organized this way. It must be systematically critical. But what is important is, what is the objective of philosophy? They say, what we have in Africa, it is not philosophy, because it's not well structured. But my question is, what is the objective? What is the ultimate goal of philosophy? Okay? Is it being structured? Is it being critical? No. If Kochi Barma says, Jigen Sopal Tebulolo,
Right.
understand?
Right.
There is no critical
What is that for the English speaking?
method. The method is not critical,
Right.
but the result is important. Okay? So if you put all the proverbs together, I think that we have something absolutely important we could call African philosophy. Because what is important is, in philosophy, is to interpret the world.
Absolutely.
To know, or to try and know the different elements of the world. To try and understand how to behave in such a situation. And I am a believer that what the proverbs, the African proverbs, convey to people is about that. Those proverbs teach them how to behave in society. And whether it is not critical or not, I don't think that is important.
Right, right.
So we have got to consider that African philosophy exists. That it is not because it is not structured in a critical way. That is, you say this is positive, and then this is negative, or you try and demonstrate that there are pros and cons, there are negative and positive things. As long as you don't demonstrate it that way, they say, okay, this is not philosophy.
Right,
you have got to do it the way it is done by Nietzsche, it is done by European thinkers, to be accepted.
It's like it's got to be sponsored by Europeans to be valid.
Yes.
This is something really we have to, I mean, you guys, Professor, distinguished Professor,
absolutely,
have to really fight.
Everything is
and there's great minds in Africa.
Considered from a European perspective.
It's sad.
As long as it doesn't tally with the European perspective, they say that's not acceptable.
Absolutely.
Whereas what is important is the goal, the objective, the result. If, for example, if I put all the wall of proverbs together, if you had all the wall of proverbs in your head, what would be the consequence? Would that be helpful to you in life?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Because I say,
there's a lot of morals in it.
Right. Doomu buur du mbokk.
Right.
Doomu jiitle du doom. If you put all those proverbs together, you will come to something tremendously positive, and that will help you behave in life.
And could have
Understand the
been
world.
used at the elementary schools, for
That's
instance,
right.
in the kindergartens, and that will
Absolutely.
build up a new African identity.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, beautiful, Professor, what you just said. Hope it's going to happen one day. But I have a lot of confidence that it's going to happen because with the young mind is coming, the
Absolutely.
generation in Africa,
Yeah.
you know, Kemi Siba,
Right.
and all these new, really conscious mind, raising awareness about Africa
Absolutely.
has things have to change. Really, in the dairas here in Senegal,
Great.
the dairas of Hizbut Tarqiyyah. Salam to my brother Atu Diagne.
Right.
I know he's so busy with his work right now at Kër Khasida.
Right.
He's building inside the universe. May Allah help him really
Okay.
to finish that. So this is Hizbut
Wishing him
Tarqiyyah.
all the best.
I mean, Ya Rabbi. I mean, people with great minds. I mean, a lot of determinations over there, and people like. What do you call them again? Mustarshidin wal Mustarshidat, and many
Right.
others we can name
Absolutely.
from Kaulak area, from all regions. Senegal is lucky to have really saints here in our country, people that really call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a right way, help children, youngsters to really develop their mind. Because this is what really, they say, what really makes out the quality or the personality of a person is not what is in his pocket. It's
Right.
what is in his
mind.
in his mind.
Right.
And if you understand that, really, we're going to move forward. We talk about Sheikh Anta Diop. Now we're going to talk about an icon you're familiar with. Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, an inspiration, of course, distinguished professor, his work, what he did fighting for 33 years against those colonial power, and finally passed away, demised in 1927, and did a lot of people even not yet understand or know about his legacy in terms of his literacy, inheritance, and many other part of his work. Is that also a problem we're having in the post-colonial era, forgetting our icons, our masters?
Brother, I'm a believer that one of the most outstanding writers in Africa is Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. He really ranks among the most outstanding writers. And I've got to refer to a book written by African American intellectual historians, etc., in which Molefi Ashanti, an outstanding African American thinker, historian, in which he wrote this. He said, Ahmadou Bamba is the most prolific. Ahmadou Bamba is the most prolific African writer of the 20th century.
Without the doubt.
Right. The most prolific African writer of the 20th century. Prolific means that he has written the greatest number of books. Molefi Ashanti, that's what he said. Ahmadou Bamba is the most prolific African writer of the 20th century. So he has written the greatest number of books. But we really have got to insist on the quality of his writings. I think we have got to be to be marveling at the quantity of his works.
Right, right.
But we have got also to appreciate the quality of his writings.
Right.
I think that is the most amazing
Right.
thing about
Successful
his writing
writer.
is the quality of his writings. Everything centered on Allah, everything centered on Muhammad.
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Praising Allah, or praising Muhammad, but also using a style which is absolutely excellent. And it's not really given to anybody to produce that type of literature.
Absolutely.
The way in which all his poems are rhymed. Bismillahi, Yalmulawahi, Bilamanahi, etc. So,
Right.
and you have, this is what I say to my students, my first year students, when I do this course, Introduction to African Literature in first year, I ask them this question: can you give me the name of the greatest Senegalese poet? Or can you give me the name of the best Senegalese poet? And they say, Senghor. And I say, okay. I said, the most widely read Senegalese poet. And they say, Senghor. I said, okay, when you're traveling from Dakar to Thiès, or from Dakar to Touba, from Dakar to Kaolack, etc., Do you hear anybody saying or reading Senghor's poems in the buses? Or whatever? They say no. And I ask them, how long are Senghor's poems? They say most of the time on one page or half of a page. And if you compare those poems, the best poems written by Senghor, and you compare them with the poems written by Ahmadou Bamba, and by other Senegalese writers also have written in Wolof, Moussa Ka, Mbaye Diakhaté, Mor Kairé, etc. I'm not only talking about Ahmadou Bamba, but I'm talking about all those Senegalese writers who have written in Wolof or have written in Arabic.
Right.
And you will come to the conclusion that those writers are by far better than Senghor in style and in content. Because in content, all their poems are rhymed. And then they are much longer. Okay? Is it really possible to have a poem that long in French? I've never seen poems written by our Senegalese poets that are as long as the poems written by Ahmadou Bamba. Very long poems, book-length poems. Book-length poems. That is really
like Nur Darini. It's not, well, I'm not denying the work of Senghor, a great mind as well.
Absolutely.
That has a social impact in Africa, of course. But the plus, and the big plus from Sheikh Al-Khadim is really the mystical influence in his work, what he achieved on that. And in terms of nobody can really gather all his writings. It's impossible what he wrote. They say 7 tons or something. And his knowledge of Arabic, Jawartullah bil lisan al-Arabiyya. He said, I came close to Allah by not just Jawartu bil Furhan Rabbi al-Mu'in, by the book I came close to Allah, but also by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught me Arabic. So he understood Arabic and mastered Wolof like no, Saint Tobias spoke Arabic like no one can speak, can sort of do the same. And also as well as Wolof. So this is a great mind that we have to go. Not just like you mentioned on Serigne Touba, not just him, but we have Serigne Mbacké Bousso, who was well versed in astronomy, well versed in geography. We have many other sheikhs who really have a huge heritage. Serigne Mbaye Diakhaté, for instance, and many, Mam Thierno Birahim, and still you know, schools of Africa are turning away from these great minds, and it's really saddened me when I hear that. We're gonna be finishing. We have about 10 minutes or 5 minutes left from the show. We're gonna get through 2 points here before we close up. I just wanted to ask you: is it this fight in terms of post-colonial era fight? Is it has to be done on a lone wolf from Senegal, or is it going to be an attack from all Africa? What's the method you think?
It's not. I'm really...
Because if I see, I'm sorry for cutting you, but if I see a small country like France really occupying a huge continent, sometimes I can sleep thinking about how can this happen? I mean, you have, what do you call them? Nigeria on the north, really around this Ivory Coast, this Ghana. At the center, you have Congo, you have all these, Rwanda, you have all these countries, you have Senegal. On the south area, you have South Africa, you have Botswana, all this. How France, I mean, the size of Texas, please, can control all these countries for over 300 years?
Yeah, I mean, this is very easy. It's a matter of survival.
Right.
It's a matter of survival. Because France understands very well that its survival depends on its presence in Africa. And France is ready to go to any length to preserve its précaré, understand, its possessions in Africa. It will not be very easy for West Africans, for Africans to get rid of France, because it's a matter, as I said, it's a matter of survival. But I also believe that unity being strength is only through unity that we can achieve real independence. I hear, for example, some people talking about France dégage. How can you ask France to dégage? How can you ask France to go
get out, right?
No. You can ask France to go away. You have got to force France to go away.
It's got to be a revolution, right?
Instead of France dégage, I think the slogan would be, or should be, dégageons la France. Understand? Let us kick France out of the whole place.
Right.
Okay? We have got to get united as Africans. Not only Francophone Africans, but Africans in general.
In general, right.
And this is the reason why the West African countries, the ECOWAS countries, got together, and they have been working on the project for years in order to introduce a new currency called ECO.
ECO. It doesn't ring right to me, though. ECO.
Yeah, but
sounds like the.
yeah, but abruptly.
Right.
Abruptly.
There was coronavirus.
France understanding that the emergence of this currency would jeopardize its presence in Africa, its influence in Africa.
Right.
France hurried up to introduce its own ECO. You know what I'm saying?
Which is different from the ECO that was talked about in Nigeria, right?
Absolutely.
But Nigeria opposed to that.
Yes, Nigeria opposed this, and then Ghana opposed
the currency
this.
was supposed to be on July, right?
Right. You see,
it's postponed.
Because this is what I'm saying.
Right.
France is ready to go to any length in order to preserve its interests. And I'm saying fair enough. That's good.
Because they have to defend their interests.
That's good.
Right.
What is important for a country, for a leader, is to do what is good for the country. Understand? As long as the French are fighting for the interests of France, that's good. Yes.
And Africans for their own interests.
They have got now, Africans have got now to understand that they have got also to be fighting for their own rights and for their own interests. Because France will never ever do anything that is positive for Africans. France will be doing what is good for France.
That's sad.
So the only solution for us is to get united.
Absolutely.
Understand?
Hopefully the dream of Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, unity is the only solution. But as long as we are in this situation with these scattered nations, these small nations,
right.
we will achieve no unity. And it will be useless to be spending our time criticizing the presidents.
Right.
The president can do nothing, I'm telling you.
We're going to come back to that in another show, inshallah, because there's a lot of problem in terms of ethnic and a lot of problems really that really pulling Africa behind the ranks here. Inshallah. That's going to tell us, bring us to your third or fourth book, Pouvoir Politique. Political powers and roman. What was that before we wrap it up on the show?
Yeah, the Pouvoir Politique au roman is an essay, is a literary essay.
Okay.
On the novels written by Chinua Achebe, the novel written by George Orwell, is a British writer. And the novel written by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I really analyze the way in which politics is handled in those novels, and how political leaders are treated, how they are presented, how they behave, etc., and the consequences of their attitudes on their nations. It's really on that, but it is an essay, so it is not a novel.
Right, a novel, right.
It's not a novel, but it's a big book, more than 300 pages, but it is not a novel.
Is there any hope with the new political leaders around Africa, Senegal, Ivory Coast? I mean, the president of Ivory Coast is looking for a third term. Is it hope for Africans really with in terms of politics and you know, getting a leap out of the dark? Is it hope?
Even this democracy, we are praising today. I'm really questioning it now.
Right.
I'm really questioning this democracy from Europe. I am a believer that all the nations of the world, all the peoples of the world, they need democracy. That is respect for all human beings, rights for all human beings. But do we have got to copy whatever is going on in Europe? these elections, the way we are carrying out elections in Africa, do you think that this is normal? Suppose you're running for president, and I'm running for president, understand? And we know the importance of being president in Africa. And you defeat me by 51% of the elections. And I have 49% of the voters. Understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
51%
to 49%.
49%, and you take everything. Do you think that this is African?
Well, I think it's not a problem. You just point out over there that needs to be really debated, inshallah, on another show, because the time is getting off right now. Again, eminent professor, distinguished professor from Sheikh Anta Diop University. But anyhow, I have a lot of hope from youngsters in Africa. See, it's moving. It's moving.
Absolutely.
If you see them from Benin, like I said, Senegal, in Senegal, many youngsters really strong, standing out. Give us hope. I always tell them, if you do the reverse, read Senegal from the other side. I think they call them conundrum or something. Or palindrome. You learn la jeunesse if you read Senegal from the other side. So youngsters have a huge role. Believe in yourself, in your Africanity, in your religion, in terms of Islam, because Islam is not a culture. It's not a culture. It's something from Allah to the Prophet. Serigne Touba. If you look at Serigne Abdul Ahad, you know, nobody can be more African than Sheikh Abdul Ahad. You know, if he speaks, you might think he doesn't even speak Arabic. That's right. and this is one of the greatest Muslim figures in that ever came out in Senegal. That's what Allah wants us to be, because Rabbana atina fi dunya hasana wa fil akhiri hasana. We cannot concentrate on this world and forget our world, but also we have to work for this world in order to be prosperous in the next one. And I open my doors also to all the university, because I haven't seen the professors over there coming to the show, and I'm sure they heard. Hopefully, you have to bring out your knowledge, come out, you know, what's going on over there, the University of St. Louis.
Yeah, because we have colleagues specializing in African studies, others specializing in American studies, others specializing in British studies, etc.
I don't know where you're hiding, but Professor Gorgui will come and get you out, inshallah. Follow our page and inshallah, and our YouTube channel. What's going to be your salam alaikum, your last word?
My last word is a thank you word.
You're welcome,
thank you for welcoming us here. This has been a great opportunity really for us to discuss. So thanks a lot, and then we praying for you, praying for your station, we praying also for the community, the Muslim community, the Senegalese community, because we are one community. So wishing that also in the future we will be having other discussions on other issues. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
You're welcome, Professor Gorgui Dieng. Always welcome in the show, inshallah. It's going to be it. Until next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.